It has never been a better time to buy a new pair of football boots. There are so many options out there now that everyone can find something that's going to work for them. But all of that choice on the market can be a little bit overwhelming. So in this video, I'm going to be going over all of the most important factors that you need to consider before you buy your next pair of boots. And I'll also leave a link below in the description where you can find all of the boots that we discuss online. So getting straight into things, the first factor that we're going to discuss is fit. Because one of the most important things is that you have to have comfortable football boots. Because if you don't find your boots comfortable or they cause you pain, they're just not going to be fun to play in and you're not going to be at your best. And it's important to keep in mind that everyone has a slightly different foot shape, and for that reason, football boots also tend to come in different shapes and sizes. For example, some boots tend to fit a little bit more snug, while others tend to be more loose. Some boots have rigid uppers, while others are more free-flowing and elastic. And most importantly, for some players, certain boots tend to run pretty narrow, while other boots tend to run a lot more wide. Now, I've already done videos on the best boots for wide-footed players and the best boots for narrow-footed players, but just to give you a general idea, I will say that New Balance tend to make the widest football boots on the market, and from my view, Puma tend to make some of the most narrow boots on the market. Adidas and Nike and the other brands tend to fit somewhere in that middle range. So what's the best thing to do to ensure that you get a fit that actually works for you? Well, for this, you have two options. The first being just try them on in store. When you get the chance to try on a pair of football boots in store, you can feel exactly how they're going to feel on feet. You get a chance to walk around in them a little bit. You can determine if there's going to be any uncomfortable pressure points for you, and it's really one of the best ways to pick out a new pair of boots. But not all of us live in the close vicinity of a football boot store, and for some people it's just going to be more convenient to order online. So in that case, one of the best things that you can do is just order a pair of football boots of the same brand or the same model that you've ordered in the past. That's because although there are some design changes from year to year, individual models usually retain a pretty similar shape even after different generations. If worse comes to worse and you order a boot online and the fit just doesn't work for you, most companies these days have a really good return policy, so you can just send them back and exchange them for a different pair. So when you do get the chance to try on your pair of boots when you first get them out of the box, what should you actually be looking for in terms of the fit? Well, contrary to popular belief, your football boots, even when they're brand new, should feel comfortable for you immediately. If your boots are going to require multiple months of breaking in just to feel slightly comfortable, they're probably not going to be the best boots for you. That means when you try on your boots for the first time, you shouldn't feel your toes getting pinched at the front of the boot, and you shouldn't have any pain at the back of your heel. The boots shouldn't be so tight that your feet feel constricted, but they also shouldn't be so loose that your foot is swimming around. In my personal experience, I like to have about 1 centimeter or around a ½ inch of space between the top of my big toe and the end of the boot. That much space is going to allow your feet to still be really secure inside of the boots, but you're also not going to have any discomfort or pressure points. And after you put on your pair of boots, just be sure to walk around wherever you are for at least a couple minutes and just get the feel of any pressure points that you may have. So if you have any discomfort in your pinky toe, your big toe, or in your heel, those are all going to be factors that you want to look out for. And for those that say that you can just break in a poor fit over time, it's important to remember that the fit of your football boots is largely going to be constrained by the base of the sole plate. So a boot can only expand so much beyond the sole plate that it's based on. So if your toes are getting crushed at the front of the boot, it's just not going to work for you very well long term. So now that we've talked about the fit of your football boots, we're going to be going on to the second most important thing, and that's the sole plate. So the sole plate and the stud configuration of your football boots is going to be hugely important for determining your success on the playing surface that you're on. And getting the right sole plate on your boots is actually really simple. All you have to do is ask yourself, what playing surface are you going to be on? If you play on natural grass, you're going to want to look for boots that have an FG or firm ground sole plate. So these football boots are going to have a slightly more aggressive stud configuration usually. They may sometimes even contain bladed studs like this Tiempo does here in the heel. And those slightly more aggressive studs are going to be great for digging into grass and dirt on a natural pitch. FG boots are probably going to be the most common football boots that you see. But what if you play on artificial grass, for example, that softer synthetic field with those black rubber pellets? Well, if you most often play on artificial grass pitches, I would recommend that you get an AG sole plate on your football boot. However, you can also get away with getting an FG football boot that just has conical studs. For example, this New Balance 442 V2 Pro has all conical studs and no bladed studs. And the reason why you don't really want bladed studs when you're playing on artificial grass is because they're going to cause a little bit too much rotational traction, which could potentially lead to knee injuries. I've also made a video for the best boots for artificial grass if that's a surface that you play on most of the time. It's one of the reasons I really like to have a pair of boots with all conical studs, just for example like the 442 Pro, the Nike Premier 3, the Copa Mundial, because these boots can play on AG or firm ground and they're overall really versatile. Then if you play on turf, which is that really hard carpet-like material that you often find when you're playing indoors as well, then obviously you would want to go for a pair of turf shoes. Now turf shoes are really widely available. Often they come in similar models as the regular FG boots, just with a turf sole plate. And essentially they're just gonna have a really large number of much smaller studs. Finally, last but not least, what do you want to get if you're gonna be playing on the street or hard court? So in that case, you would want to get a pair of indoor shoes. So indoor shoes like the Sambas I have here are just gonna have these pretty thick rubber soles that are gonna be great for traction on really hard surfaces. And overall, I would recommend that anyone that plays football or soccer regularly, you always wanna have at least one pair of indoor shoes in the event that you have to end up training on the street or on a court. All right, so just to recap, the fit and the sole plate are two of the most important factors that you should be looking at when getting your next pair of football boots. So now that we've covered those two really important points, let's move on to some other key factors you should be looking at as well. Because next up, we got laced versus laceless football boots. Now, laceless boots have been growing a lot in popularity in recent years, and that's mostly because the laceless technology has also gotten a lot better. So some of the pros of laceless football boots are you're gonna have a much cleaner striking surface with the absence of those laces, and you're also gonna have more of a sock-like feel, and some people find them easier to put on and take off. You're also gonna have a really consistent fit because if you don't have laces to tie, you're always gonna get that same lockdown every time. And probably the most obvious pro of having laceless boots is, well, you just don't have to tie your laces. But even though they've progressed a lot, there are still some cons to laceless football boots. And in my opinion, the biggest con is still gonna be the slight lack of responsiveness. Without that lacing system there to really secure your foot in place, you do risk there being a little bit of a loss in lockdown and the potential for heel slippage when you're playing. And they're just not really that great for players that are interested in customizing their fit. Because when you have a boot with laces, you could keep them a little bit more loose throughout the toe box and midfoot and then tie them tighter around the heel or vice versa. But with a laceless football boot, what you see is what you get. But if you are interested in the new laceless football boot market and you want to try out one of these boots, I definitely have some recommendations. In my experience, the best laceless football boot you can get is the New Balance Tequila V4 Pro, followed closely by the Adidas X Crazy Fast 0.1 and the Adidas Copa Pure. If you go with any of those options, you should be solid. And next up, we got material type, as in leather or synthetic. So these two different material types are both going to have their own advantages and disadvantages. Leather, for example, is going to offer a little bit more of a plush and padded feel on the ball. That touch when you're just juggling or dribbling is really recognizable, and it's one of the reasons that I really like leather football boots. Leather is also going to do a little bit of a better job at slightly molding to your feet over time, and leather football boots are typically going to offer a little bit more protection than synthetic football boots as well. However, synthetic football boots have their advantages as well, and some of the newest uppers are really impressive with the new technology they're able to implement, and synthetic uppers like those on the Puma Ultra as well as the Nike Mercurial Vapor 15, they're extremely thin and they offer you a barefoot feel on the ball that really no other leather football boot could replicate. I've worn both leather football boots and synthetic boots, and honestly, they can both be really great. At the end of the day, it's just going to come down to personal preference. And last but not least, the final factor that you're going to need to consider is your budget. Because ultimately, the amount of money that you're willing to spend will determine the boots that are going to be available for you. Now, if you're willing to spend upwards of $280 for your next pair of football boots, you can pretty much choose from anything on the entire market. But don't worry, you don't actually need to spend that much money to get a great pair of football boots. For around $100 and sometimes even less, you can find amazing boots that are currently on the market. Just to name a few, we have the Tiempo Legend Academy from Nike, as well as the Adidas Copa Gloro, the Nike Premier 3, the New Balance 4.2, the list goes on. I'll also leave a link below where you can find some of the most affordable football boots online as well. Hopefully this video has been helpful for you in determining what you should be looking for in a pair of football boots. Just remember to get the boots that work for you and don't just get them because you're trying to impress someone else or just get the thing that looks the coolest. The most important thing is that you're going to have the boots that allow you to play at your best. So that's going to do it for this video. Let me know if you have any questions down below, and I will see you in the next video.